that's something that's, it's of interesting exploration. But what we always try to do is make things accessible as far as we can, and with our understanding at the time, so that anybody, whether they're art educated or not, can come and enjoy this, however old they are.
It's for everyone as standard.
Yeah, it's just and we don't sort of say
children are invited to the private views and the opinions and things as well.
So not separate, like this isn't, it's just kind of inclusive. Okay, I get that.
Well, one of the things that's quite interesting about that is then some people might make assumptions that it's not for them.
Yeah.
Because it's open to everyone, then it can't be serious art, or it's not.
So they're excluding themselves because it's too broad for them, and they
want it to be a special thing. So that's the thing that I've been thinking about quite a lot. Is, for example, collectors often don't want to be looking at the exhibition with everybody else, and we're very interested in, where we can, selling work to collectors, but not in a way that shapes the rest of the experience for everybody else. And that's quite an interesting.
So you don't adapt you don't adapt it for just the buyers or the collectors. You kind of keep it. Do you do a separate thing for them if they?
Well, I think that's one of that's the almost contradiction. That we might actually end up having, a collector's morning or something like that. What we do currently is we say the exhibitions are open at particular times or by appointment.
Okay.
So that gives people the option to come at a time when the public isn't here. But that doesn't happen very much. And the other thing about collectors is that they like to be kind of wined and dined and feel special. That kind of experience of being on the VIP list.
And as much as the commercial aspect is important to the gallery, I think we want to be able to for everyday people to have art as well. So we often have what we call a space capsule, so an affordable art edition of lots of the exhibitions. So anybody can own a piece of art. It's not just an elitist kind of collectors kind of thing. Yeah.
So you keep it very the audience, the audience and the viewers are so broad. Like it's each end of the spectrum. So you do have some challenges on how to accommodate everybody.
Yeah.
Like you intimidate some people on one side, and
it's a juggle.
It's just figuring out how you do it. It's interesting. How is this organisation staffed? What professional, artistic, intellectual, or social backgrounds does its members come from? It's kind of a broad question.
It's a very, very big question.
Yeah, very sweeping.
And it also, when I was reading that, when Corey sent it to me, I was kind of thinking, well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's a bit like when you do equal opportunities monitoring. I mean, some organisations do that based on what their assumptions are, which is completely the wrong way to do it, because they might say this person is obviously black or disabled, and that might not be how the person themselves would want to be identified. So there's kind of a really interesting thing about identity and what community you think you're part of, and how we as people who work in the organisation, and I suppose as me as one of the directors would say, this is who we are. And that's probably an exercise that we should reflect on. But it's actually, there's also legal things about how you can recruit people.
Such as, like?
Well, there are, equal opportunities. If you see a job advertised that's, for example, for working in the black community, you have to actually, if you say you want to have someone appropriate to do that, you have to quote a section of the Equal Opportunities Act, which says we're looking for a black person or a person from the communities, particular communities or this background. Which is an exclusion from the Equal Opportunities Act. So that's, for example, is kind of particular. So I would say that our current process is fairly organic. I mean, Rachel came to us initially as an intern from Camberwell.
2009.
2009. Okay, so straight from Camberwell,
I was
BA
just
or
studying
A?
BA.
BA. Okay.
So and it was an organic process, I suppose, of you.
Of seeing what fits.
I was going to say. So what just feels like you're not just looking at the CV. Okay, it's sort of worked out. You fit well within the organisation, and it just worked. Okay.
But that's probably been a more common process. And I think what we did first of all was there were obviously, as soon as you start doing something, a lot of artists write to you and say, I'm very interested in what you do. Rachel House and I always used to say, well, put yourself on a mailing list, come to see things, come and see what you're doing, and see if you think that you kind of belong,
So
have some sense of affiliation in the sense of how we're trying to do things. And that's not to say that we necessarily knew exactly what we were doing always. That was an organic process as well.
So you're not so much interested in what people have done in the past, where they've come from with it, just kind of how it fits for now, how they're like how the two. If you were just like thinking like you were trying to find a new member of staff or a new manager or whatever, like you wouldn't so much look at what they've done or background they're from. You would kind of just.
I think it would be a mixture.
Those things are important, but you know you can be qualified to the teeth.
It could
if
be.
You don't have a good repertoire of people, or you don't. I don't know. You don't have similar interests as the gallery's ethos. Then perhaps you wouldn't be the right candidate.
Yeah.
I think we certainly wouldn't only look at somebody who'd had, really good commercial experience in a sort of blue chip gallery, for example, but they might not be interested in coming here anyway.
Okay.
So there's probably a kind of mutual interest kind of on either side. But I think that we are now, as part of our sort of review process, thinking about who's missing. And we've obviously had some staff turnover over the years as well, and people who've been with us, sometimes on short contracts to do a particular role for a particular project, and that's come to an end, and we've sort of said, well, was that good or bad, or what did we learn from that process? Sometimes things like where we've employed people to do particular media work, it's as much a learning experience from the process for us as to what we're trying to achieve each time, and there's often a specific focus about a particular community we're trying to reach or so on, and that's always much more effective if you're working with somebody from the community that you're trying to reach, or if you've got somebody who understands how to do that.
Yeah.
That's always
okay. So about decision making, creative programs, management matters. How do you go about that? Like, is it all done for you? Do you work together? How is that?
It has been that Rachel House and I we would have somebody who we'd want to work with, if you like, and that would sometimes come about through we liked what they were doing politically.
I think we were discussing this the other day about the different kinds of programming that we do. We were trying to define the 3 or so
different roles that we have.
Where maybe the space offers our facilities to a hosted exhibition, or we invite another curating body, or we have an in-house curation, and those sort of definitions and decisions are made by the curators. And then once those things are in place, I suppose I do the organisation and kind of get the ball rolling.
Okay, so how?
But also, I mean, I think we probably haven't done as much as we could, but we endeavour to have sort of feedback between us, and obviously from you, Rachel.
I mean, yeah, it's not quite as black and white as that, is
Yeah.
it? Like,
How does your organisation promote its activities and productions?
all the usual ways.
The usual ways. So
Facebook,
social media.
our website.
Yeah.
We're on art listings. Word of mouth, carrier pigeons.
It is a again, it's a bit of a work in progress, and it also, I mean, there are, as Rachel said, there's kind of the normal ways of doing things, but on the whole, I think what we tend to notice is that the personal ways of publicising things are much more effective. So giving someone an invitation in their hands is always much more likely to result in them coming. I mean, it's fairly well understood that Facebook, you know, I'm going to this event. Probably 1 out of every 50 people will actually go. Having the right kind of person thinking about how to get people who are interested in this thing to the thing is also really important.
Who does that? Like, who does that?
It's a collaboration at the moment, and I think, as we referred to earlier on, we've had specialist people helping us, sometimes really effectively, sometimes interestingly, slightly on a tangent to where we thought we were trying to get people from, but that was interesting.
Yeah.
I think it also, again, it depends on what project it is. I'm thinking specifically of Queersing Fest that we hosted here, and that has its own community.
Yeah,
so that kind of promotion,
already, so
they've already got kind of quite a succinct community that kind of news travels fast in, and then
it has a particular information network already, which is very important.
Yes, so depending on what project we're on, you've got to tap into whatever it is.
And it gets different like groups tag them to you, like introduced them to you. How does the organisation document its activities and productions? Do you have an accessible archive?
We would like to have a much more accessible archive. So again, it's something that the website kind of has.
Our website's quite clunky. It's done well, but
yeah, it's like everything. The technology's now completely changed, by which we might hold an archive, and I think the intention was always that we would try and add as much as we could to each exhibition's kind of, each project's sort of what's in the, you know, there's potential to have a gallery of images there, but just the sheer work relating to trying to do that for everything that we do means that you just can't always.
But you probably have the material, you probably have all the documentation.
Well, we have, this is our first 10 or 11 years probably.
Okay.
And then some projects have their own folder as well. So we certainly have an archive, and all of this is all digital JPEG. So we used to have, again, we had a slideshow on the computer that we could take out and sort of do when we did a talk, we'd have a rolling slideshow of things. And again, that's fairly easy to update, but it still requires work to keep it fresh. And
so you do have archive, you're just thinking of new ways of how you
certainly have a physical archive. And there's certainly a web presence on our website that you can go back 11 years, 12 years, and you can see everything that's happened, but you might not be able to, you know, browse all of browse the images and all of the exhibition pictures. But
Cool. Do you know of any organisations that are similar to Space Station 65?
I think it's an interesting question. I think there are organisations which have similarities. Because one of the things I'm involved in at the moment is thinking about restructuring or building structure for Space Station 65. Looking around, and there's been a process with a couple of people spending a few years, during the last couple of years, spending time looking at how other contemporary art organisations are both funded and organised and structured. There are similarities with our organisations and differences, and sometimes it's about who's involved, sometimes it's what's important. I mean, for example, we started around about the same time as Transition Gallery, which has probably moved twice in different on different sort of calendar timescales to us. But I think that Transition's driving forces, there's similarities, and we have both have similar artists we've worked with, but I think our focus is somewhat different. We both started as artist-run spaces, and I think sort of diverged as well as followed parallel paths as well. And I think that's sort of pretty typical, that as you sort of look around and you pick up new exhibitions and look at all of the galleries and look at their websites, all of the organisations who conduct exhibitions or projects, because probably not, I mean, we wouldn't necessarily define ourselves as a gallery in quotes, although we have exhibitions. We try to think about other ways of describing what we do, because that brings preconceived ideas. But sometimes you just have to say, oh yeah, we're a gallery, because otherwise it's a conversation rather than a word. And there are organisations like Studio Voltaire, who started as an artist-run organisation, have become professionalised. We have some similarities. We have some relationships with some of the people in Studio Voltaire. We have a few studios, but they're a studio organisation that has become a funded exhibition, very well respected international exhibition organisation. You could go on, but it's kind of. I think there are, and a lot of artist-run spaces have a time-limited focus, and they, sometimes they're literally called 5 years, and sometimes people have a sense of when we get to this particular point, we'll stop or we'll do something slightly different, and we haven't had that, except that the way that we've done things has changed over the decades.
Yeah. Cool. Moving on to sort of the ratio between male and female artists that you exhibit, is this a conscious, do you consciously think we're going to keep it balanced, or is it just the work probably, how is that?
It's very much, Rachel House and I started out from, I don't know if we certainly started out knowing that the world was much more male focused and organised to a male agenda, and I think that probably informed the way that we wanted to do things. But as we became more experienced and more aware of how the art world functioned, it's still very obvious that you can quite probably, if you look at what's on in London at the moment, there'll be a significant number of
male
exhibitions
painters
that have male painters or male sculptors and no women involved, and no one comments on it, and
we certainly show quite a few women artists.
And we deliberately looked for work by women artists, and I think the point was it wasn't very hard to find exceptional female artists who were underrepresented in terms of showing, selling, being represented or whatever, and we carried on doing that. So I'm not sure how the numbers, I know we have looked at the numbers, but it's probably
I can work it out for you.
Yeah, well, at the beginning it was very much like and then did it change throughout the 12 years, or was it Did it become a bit more like, at the beginning you're just like, we need more, we want
I think
female
one of the things that it was an organic process again. I think it wasn't we will do this and it's a plan.
Yeah.
I think we
Just being
worked
aware.
with a couple of people who I think one of our earliest exhibitions, really interesting exhibition, really interesting artists. They struggled to find a woman to be in the exhibition, and we were like, gosh, that's unusual, because we know 6 really
The wealth
good
of people we
Yeah.
not looking in the right places.
And that certainly, that was probably in our second year.
Yeah.
So, and that was an artist curation team who came and did something, and we very much liked what they did. We enjoyed the exhibition, but particularly the gender balance of the artists in the show was something that was quite an early. Oh, that's interesting, and so it never kind of went away.
I'm trying to think what we've got coming up next and what we've done for the last couple of years. We've got a female artist coming next in June, and in July will be an open submission, so that'll be a mixed bag, and then later on in the year it's all female artists.
Okay. A large number of your exhibitions work with themes of sexuality, gender and identity. Is this something you encourage as a gallery? I know, I remember before you were saying you don't particularly encourage one, like anything, you're kind of always keeping it, but like...
But it is something that's very close to your heart.
Yeah, I mean, both Rachel House and myself happen to be bisexual ourselves, so I guess that brings a way of looking at the world with us as artists and as people. And I suppose we've both been involved in organising things around things like Pride and HIV, feminist things. So, and I think we kind of bring all of that with us when we're thinking about how to organise exhibitions. So it's just there, and it's not that you kind of want to say we're going to do this because, and we wouldn't try and. I think what we've avoided is having themed exhibitions where, you know, gender or, I mean, there are no. That's we've said yes to exhibitions where gender was definitely a focus, like Music and Liberation, which was a history, a retrospective look at women's activist liberation of music practice from the 70s and 80s through a particular fantastic writer and theorist called Deborah Withers, who curated the project. But we wouldn't, I think what we wouldn't do is kind of reverse engineer that and try and create the exhibition because of the theme in that in a way. We would try and we would look at what was interesting.
I think it's certainly something that the gallery would like to offer a platform for, but not exclusively because it is about those things.
Yeah. Cool.
I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does perfectly. Thank you. How is Space Station 65 funded?
It was funded really privately through my and Rachel's own funds, supplemented with whatever we could get from whoever would give us money, which I think is how most artist-run things start, and probably not lots of cases carry on. We've come to a point where when we moved here, we set up a limited company to basically to sublet part of the site to other people to bring in income to pay for other things, and to pay particularly for the sort of artistic program. and we're in a process of investigating some form of not-for-profit structure for the gallery, and probably for some of the studio units that
charitable
we
status and things.
Yeah.
That was my next question. Is it a profit or not a not-for-profit concern?
Well, what we've been trying to do is straddle both.
Yeah.
Which
how's that been working out?
Well, I think what tends to happen is that you tend to be drawn to focus on what you're more interested in.
Yeah.
And for us, so far, that has definitely been the artistic side of things, and the curation and artistic practice, and not the business side of things.
Okay.
And I think where we are now is we've got a business manager helping us, and he's just kind of painstakingly sort of going through things to help us think about how we can be more efficient and bring more income in.
About making the non-profitable things profitable.
Yes.
So we don't have to compromise.
Exactly, and not sort of saying, well, we have to do it this way so that we, so it's more commercial, but how we can exploit what we're doing to be more effective.
We kind of touched on this earlier.
And I should just mention we are getting some help from a great facility called Lawyers Volunteering for the Arts, which enables arts organisations to get pro bono legal advice. So that's helping us get to our charitable or not-for-profit status. And they recently helped Peckham Space become Peckham Platform and become an independent charitable organisation. So it's sort of following in that wake, if you like.
What kinds of benefits are there to organise, we kind of spoke about this earlier, but to organising an exhibition on an international scale? What kind of difficulties do you have to overcome in this process? How was it exhibition? How was it organised? I think we kind of spoke about it before, but just like I think this is kind of focusing on your connections with Finland in your last.
I think it can only be a benefit to kind of widen the horizons a bit. So that's a good thing. And as for difficulties, I don't know if it's any more difficult because it's international. I think it could be or can be just as difficult to do something from, I don't know, Birmingham or from inside London as well.
Down the road. Yeah. How did you get connected with?
Just to kind of expand a little bit on that, I think one of the things that we never know is where the difficulties in any project is going to be.
Yeah.
So when you start, you sort of think, well, we've done this a bit before, so we know how to do it. And there's always going to be different things and different personalities and skills that they bring or don't bring.
Yeah.
And you're kind of, however well prepared you are, you're learning as you go along with how to work with these particular people or this curator or whatever, or the shipper that they're using, or there's myriad details in each project. And with Northern Souls, there was the local person here, one of the curators is very local, and one of them is in Finland.
Okay.
So we had this kind of perfect situation in the sense that we've got this international link. We met them both, and it was quite a
They came to one of our openings and introduced themselves.
And
like you said earlier, that's the better way of working with people. You come to the gallery space, and it kind of happens like that.
It happens quite a natural, organic process, and also, I think they were very concerned about the experience for everyone being as good as it could be, and they chose the artists that they chose for a number of criteria, which we understood later on were how well do we work together was one of them. So that was very good, and it's I think one of our most enjoyable experiences as an organisation to
It's
work.
been a delight.
Yeah.
What, the Northern Souls?
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to ask about that. Like, how do you think overall it went? Was it kind of like overall a success? Could you say you're sort of changing direction? Is that sort of more where you're? I don't know.
I think that.
Or is it kind of similar to how it's always been? It's this one?
I think this exhibition. I mean, an old friend came in yesterday and he said a lot of it looks quite different, and to the work he'd expect us to show, and I was quite surprised by that, but also quite pleased. But I think probably we won't see work looking very different, or exhibitions looking very different necessarily because of the process of reorganising. Hopefully, I hope.
Okay.
But that will be behind the scenes and you'll
Yes.
be dazzled by all the
Yes,
stuff
like
that's
the
there.
change.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of it will be more about how we get things done and shortcut things perhaps.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for having us.
Nice
You've
to
been amazing.
Thank you very much.